Hello, hello, hello. How is everybody doing this evening? I'm so excited about tonight's guest and our show and what we will be talking about with short-term rentals. Before I introduce our special guest, I just wanted to thank you again for joining us here live. If you're watching the replay, #replay. For those of you new to the 1% Code Collective, I'm your host, Dr. Melva, board-certified radiation oncologist, serial entrepreneur and investor, and I help other top income earners and healthcare professionals create multiple streams of income so you can turn your job into a hobby and trade in those golden handcuffs for true wealth. So if you haven't registered for the free masterclass 2-day event, please go to drmelva.com/masterclass. It will be on August 23rd and August 24th. I'm super excited to share that with you. We'll be talking about how to leverage your 6-figure income into a 7-figure net worth. We'll talk about how to manage risk, time constraints, and career constraints. And we're covering all the topics. It's in the 1% Code Collective. Would you like to say hello? Hello. Okay. I'm going to need you to step out. Okay. We're going to welcome our guests tonight.
I'm staying.
Okay. No. You're not going to stay tonight. All right. So we are going to get into the show. So when you're joining, let us know where you're joining from, what questions you have for our guests. You can go ahead and drop those there so she can be prepared to answer. And I am going to bring on our other special guest. Leland, you got to say goodbye, okay? I have to bring on our special, you see our special guest right there? She's waiting. Do you see? You see? Yeah. All right. Let's bring her on, okay? All right. Give me 1 second. Let me switch. Give me 1 second. I'll bring on our special guest. Come on, buddy. Sorry about that. All right. I'm going to bring you on. Hello. Can you see me?
Hello. Yes, I can see you.
Pronounce your first and last name, and then I'm going to read your introduction if that's okay. Pronounce it for me so I don't say it wrong.
First name is Zelda, and last name Okia.
Okia. Okay, perfect. Well, welcome, Dr. Zelda Okia. I'm so happy to have you here on the 1% Live weekly show. So I'm going to read your bio if that's okay.
Sure.
All right. So we'd like to welcome Dr. Zelda Okia, Dr. Z, who is a life and weight loss coach who recently transitioned from death into life. Prior to coaching, Dr. Z worked as a county medical examiner, forensic pathologist. Very cool. Dr. Z started her Airbnb experience in October 2020, and she has had steady bookings since that time. Prior to this, Dr. Z was a landlord since 2005. So very experienced landlord. All right. Well, welcome. I'm so excited that we got this going. And I guess the background story, you shared your experience on one of the messages in the 1% Code Collective. And I'm like, oh gosh, you really know this. And I think there's so much that you have to offer. So I'll let you start. Tell us a little bit about your journey, who you are. I'd love to hear about your coaching, and then we can get into short-term rentals if that works for you.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Okay.
So I got into, I'd always said I was going to be a doctor, not really knowing what was going to be involved, but I always said it. So kind of traveled that path. And like my final year of residency, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so I was like, I want to get into this entrepreneurial stuff. And actually, my sister was in Amway, and I did that for a little bit too.
Okay.
But so I got my first job out. I was doing hospital pathology. So I I started forensics in 2009, but prior to that, I did hospital pathology, making really good money. So I'm like, I'm going to get into this whole real estate investing now that I have the money to do it.
Right.
And it was interesting because when I bought my first house in 2000, and I had the opportunity. I was looking in the paper back when you could look in the paper, and there was this couple that I contacted, and they were selling a duplex in a great neighborhood. But I was so afraid to actually live right next to my tenants, so I passed on that one, and I bought my first single family home. But that property like doubled in value by 2005. So I was like, okay, now I'm definitely going to get into this thing.
Wait, so what year did you buy it? It doubled in what year? And what year had you purchased it?
When I was considering purchasing it in 2000, and then in 2005 it had doubled because that's when the real estate boom, whatever. But that's when, of course, when I started buying the other properties, which weren't in great neighborhoods. And my father was like, just start with a single family. And I was like, no.
Right.
I wanted to build my empire, and I wanted to have it like yesterday. So I
Exactly.
started off with a 4-family.
Oh, you started with the 4-family as your first investment?
Yeah. I started with a 4-family, and that was going pretty good, right? And then I ended up getting another one.
Wow.
Which I know I went crazy. I absolutely went crazy. So I know, and I was like thinking about the guest you had on last week, and I was like,
Yes,
oh my gosh, because I did everything wrong.
Oh no. Yeah, because she talked about Dr. Q, who was on last week, and you can drop the link to that if people haven't listened to that episode. She talked about getting her real estate license first. So okay, tell me about the fourplex though, because that's a big leap, right? As a start. So where did you find a fourplex? Like, did you built it? Was it already there? Did you know the people? Was it close to you? Like, how did you start in
I joined the real estate group. So I was in an apartment association. I joined that, and I joined the local real estate club. So I would recommend that. I'm still in the real estate club. So definitely do that first. But of course, through that, I met a realtor. So I bought it off the MLS. I mean, I just went through a realtor. So I didn't do any kind of background, anything. I was like, I just want to buy something. So I found something and I bought it. And it went pretty good. I was actually, in the beginning, I was doing some of the work myself. I mean, okay, not really. I was managing it. Okay. I didn't have a management company.
Right. Management is a doctor. I know how that goes.
Yeah. But what you were talking about, having a team or a network. So what I did is, when I was going to replace like floor tiles the first time in one of the bathrooms, I went to Home Depot, and I happened to meet one of the guys, and I was asking him how much it was going to cost, for Home Depot to install. And he's like, just let me do it. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. And so he did it, and he became my handyman basically, but he was a lifesaver. Because maybe a couple years later, or a year later, when I got into some other more problematic properties, he was there for me. I mean, one time somebody, I think it was like just around New Year's Eve, somebody, busted up the fire extinguisher. That was a cool thing, to get the fire extinguisher and spray it everywhere. There was no fire, but just, want to see what happens. And then I think they busted out the front door, because like the glass was on the outside of the property. And they had broken into one of the tenants' apartments. And so I had to, secure the door. And it was, I think the fire department had contacted me about midnight or 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever time it was. And I called him. I said, his name was Garfield. And I said, Garfield, I need your help. And he was like, sure, I'll be right over.
So you had a lifesaver. Yeah. So that's important. So that experience didn't deter you from doing more. So do
absolutely not.
Is he still your person or your team, or is he still around?
Who?
Garfield?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. I still.
You've worked with him for how many years is that now?
Since what, 2005? Yeah. So
that's a long time.
Yeah.
That was one of our problems.
Yeah, we were
that was one of our problems, like finding contractors that would stay around. And
I mean, we would have our times, he would kind of do the contractor thing where, another deal comes along. He could never say no, and I kind of get onto him. I mean, I didn't like being mean, but he seemed to respond when I raised my voice. But it was so, it's one thing that's interesting is there's sexism obviously in medicine,
right?
But I was surprised to find it in real estate. And so it was interesting because one time we had those mailboxes that are like fit into the drywall or whatever. And so it had come out. And so I was calling this guy to like just put it back or do whatever, and he's like, Zelda, do you have and I wasn't married at the time. He's like, do you have a husband or a boyfriend that I could contact, And I was like, you mean like Garfield? Yeah, Garfield. Have Garfield call me. Let Garfield call me. So,
excuse me?
Yes. So I had Garfield call.
Hey, it worked. It worked.
It worked. Yeah.
So let me ask you. So you started with the fourplex, which I think is phenomenal that you just jumped into it, because what comes up a lot in this group and other professionals I talk to is the fear. And most people are afraid to like fail or afraid to get started. They don't know about risk, but you just sounds like you just jumped all in.
I was
You've been doing
fearless.
it 15 years.
I still do that, and that's why it's funny in contrast to my coaching business, because I think now I am afraid. So it's, what, I was thinking about, you always say that, kind of know your numbers, know your ROI, kind of have your exit strategy, your intention. Yeah. And no, I didn't have that. But the other thing I was going to say is that reserves and having a super reserve. So I did made sure that I had money, because I think most people go out of business because of a lack of capital. So I did have cash in the bank. So I always knew that I had that available and I had my job. Now, I did things that I probably shouldn't have. I mean, I know I shouldn't have, because of that.
Tell us for all the listeners so they don't do it.
Well, for one thing, I could come and go, and I really shouldn't have, but I did sometimes. Like one time the police were at my door. They were looking for one of my tenants, and they were going to bust the door in. So I kind of left work to take care of that emergency. By the time I got there, they'd already busted it in anyway. I don't know if they found the guy or not. So that's what I was saying. Like when you were talking about, there were like homeless people and stuff. And I did it too. I mean, I would go into the basement sometimes. I didn't have a gun. I talk to some landlords now that like pack heat. And I don't do any of that. So it's
so you never outsource any of your rentals. So you never use a rental management company.
I had about 6 or 7 of them too.
Okay. but do you prefer to manage them on your own? Because I know most people are just like, I don't want to be a landlord, or I was reading through one of the other groups that I think a lot of us share in common, and people are just like, oh, rentals are a headache and you have to do this. But I mean, I think it just depends.
Yeah.
And then if you're not headache you want to deal with.
Yeah. And if you have a management company, you got to manage them too. Like I said, I tore through management companies, next thing I know, somebody's owing $3-4 grand in rent. And I'm like, what's going on? Because a lot of them, like I had a company. So obviously they were managing other rental properties, and then yours got lower priority. So then you switch, and I had a person, and I thought that would be better, but this kind of the same thing. So I've run the gamut on that too. I mean, I think the last rental company that I had was okay, but they weren't even in Milwaukee. So that was something. They were in a different city. So Milwaukee, just my properties were management intensive. And I think that, but my problem is I bought too many too fast. So I should have looking back, it probably would have been good if I would have taken my father's advice and either just bought the one, even though it was a 4-family, just stuck to that one and really learned it, because you're going to make mistakes. There's just a natural part of it. But then on top of that, to just throw on these extra management issues, I was having to go and like meet the tenants. Half the time they wouldn't show up. I was doing the background checks. Half the time the information wasn't right. So that was one of the biggest pain in the necks was actually, like meeting a tenant, having them do the walkthrough, having them fill out the application, doing the background check, and things just weren't right. So I had one company that just did that. They just placed the tenant for you. And that worked out pretty well. And then they went out of business. So it was just constant flux and not a lot. It was unpredictable. It was just completely unpredictable. And I think I had money, but that gave me like a false sense of security. And if I would have had your course, I mean, back then, obviously your course didn't exist. But I think there's a lot more resources now, so people can avoid a lot of the mistakes I made.
Right. But I think the fact that you've gone through that now you've transitioned into a different strategy, right? So I think this opens the door to short-term rentals.
Oh my gosh.
How did you, like, let's compare. So we've said some things that aren't pretty about the rental industry and landlord industry. And I think if I can just compare from our experience, we did a lot of the same things that you talked about. So we got a lot of properties. I remember we did like 8 or 9 flips, just boom, boom, bam. And then we kind of reevaluated the strategy. I'm always talking about strategy because it's like what you said. I think we could have had a lot more wealth faster if we'd started with strategy versus, I think people just teach techniques. Like my husband used to have, I don't know if you remember Carlton Sheets, and there's another guy, he would have all those like VHS, and my husband really is the only reason I'm involved in real estate, to be honest, because he always wanted to be a real estate investor. Like every time he talked about it, I've known him since the 9th grade. He's like, I want to do real estate. I'm like, well, is that a job? Does it count? And then, he'd study and take all these courses, but it didn't give you strategy necessarily. It's like, go out, buy a house, get it cheaper, fix it up. And, it was the how, but I don't think it was, okay, like you said, if you get a fourplex, maybe wait until you figure this out. Build your team first. Look at your savings, your working capital. I don't think that was taught enough. And you went out to like buy. Even the big courses. Like we did a big course. We did one of those like $75,000 bus tours.
Oh wow.
And we're actually our video, we made them a lot of money because at the time we were too young to realize like, hey, people are going to make money off of your testimony. And we like sold $40,000 tickets to someone else's event just from us talking as a couple. And looking back, I'm just like, we just signed our life away. Like we didn't know any better. It's that pure like ignorance on fire. But yeah, I agree with you. I think like jumping out, you look back in their mistakes, but at the same time, you kind of built that muscle. So nothing's really going to scare you when the right opportunity or bigger opportunity comes along.
And I don't really like those national companies either because they don't know your local market. And real estate is local. I mean, if you buy local, I guess if you buy out of state, I would still say know your local market. Right. And now one of the real estate clubs I'm part of, they actually have like a coaching program where they're actually like do the bus tours in the city, and they'll show you one that's already completed, one that they just bought, one that they're currently working on. And my husband did that course, and then he had really good success with his flipping, and I think that was because he had really that good training.
No, he did that while y'all were married, or this was like before?
Before. I met him through the real estate group.
Okay, a little real estate love story.
Yeah, pretty much.
So how long had he been doing real estate before you guys met?
He joined our group, I think in 2010. And then, he was part of the coaching program, but then they would just have like regular meetings for everybody, to learn about it. But you didn't have to necessarily be in the coaching program. And so there was, they had a special weekend event in Madison that we went to, and it was a smaller group, and we could talk about the different issues that we were going through. And that's when I really met him, and I was like talking to him, and I had just bought a little house that I was gonna flip. And I hadn't taken the program. I was like, I don't need no stinking coaching program. I'm gonna do this on my own.
You ended up with the whole husband out of this little house.
Yeah. So I said, come and take a look, maybe you want to fund it. Maybe you want to get involved, And so he went and seen it, and he's like, you broke this rule and this rule and this rule and this rule. He said, you bought it on a busy street. There's no garage, and he was just going through all the things I had done wrong. And he's like, there's no way I would. And then we went to look at one of his houses that he got for a really good price, and he was going to get it under contract. So my flip, I held it for about 5 years, but I did eventually sell it.
Right. But you have the marriage now looking up, and he's helped you. It sounds like you're making decisions together now.
Yeah.
Well, that's an awesome story. Like that's an exciting story. So, all right. So let's transition into short-term rentals. So can you tell me a little bit about how you got into short-term rentals and what you think the benefits are? For those watching to learn about that.
Yeah, I didn't think that any of my other properties would really work as short-term rentals because they weren't in the best neighborhoods. So what happened was, so I lost that job that I had at the hospital, a really good job, right?
Oh.
And so then I transitioned to for forensics, and mainly just because I didn't want to move. And so then I ended up having to move to Waukesha, which was still in the vicinity. It was like a half hour outside of Milwaukee, or 45 minutes. Um, so, and it was a lot more. It was a lot more labor intensive, that job. Like, I definitely could not just leave and run down to my property at the drop of a hat. I really I had to be there. And since it was like my other properties were probably, 3-4 miles from where I lived and not too far from where I worked, but I was like at least 45 minutes away now. So I had to really rely on the management company. I couldn't go by there. And so what happened was, after a while, I started thinking, well, I was going to let him go. And I was thinking about, what else do I want to do? Or do I want to get into another investment? And so we had bought a house in Waukesha, which was a nice house, it was a nice neighborhood. But my husband developed some sort of a reaction. I don't know if it was just from going into the moldy houses. Maybe he developed like a mold sensitivity. And I mean, we had the house tested and we did the strips, and there was like maybe elevated levels, but then like we took out the drywall in the basement and we took out the carpeting. We never found mold anywhere.
Right.
But we tried to move back in and he just couldn't tolerate it. So we ended up having to move out. We got a condo and he didn't want a basement. So ended up, I was debating, was I going to sell the house or were we going to keep it? And so for the longest time, I just kind of sat on it like for a year. And so because I was like, I had all my stuff. I didn't want to put it in storage.
Right.
So in the end, we got rid of some things and cleared the upper level and just have stuff in the basement. So I said, now with how we've cleared everything out, I could try the Airbnb. And so that's what we did. So they have access to the entire house, which I think is a plus. And I just have a lockbox on the basement, so they don't access the basement. So all of my stuff is still down in the basement. And put a lock, one of those smart locks on the door.
Right.
And everything is just done through the app. Oh, hallelujah.
Now this is the app on the Airbnb platform.
The Airbnb platform app. So I don't have to meet the people when they come. They can access as soon as they get there. Just had to furnish it. And I just bought like white sheets. We bought beds for all the different, the bedrooms. And
how many, I'm sorry, what is it? Is it a 3-2 or what's the layout of the property?
It's a 3 bedroom. There's some space in the basement that could be bedrooms, but it's not really designed as a bedroom. So I don't really like the idea of people sleeping down in the basement.
Right.
Because there's not another egress or whatever, but it's a 3 bedroom and 2 bath. So I think it's a really nice layout. It's a open concept. So you come in, you're in the living room, dining room, kitchen, everything is just open concept. There's a nice patio in the back. And it's a really nice neighborhood. So apparently I made Superhost. So people like it.
Yeah, you were saying that. So the Superhost, is that after you've had how many guests? Is it based on your reviews or?
From what I can see, I wrote down, what did I write? I wrote something down. Oh yeah, it says I have 147 nights over 5 days, no cancellations, a 5-star overall rating, 100% response rate. So I don't know. I'm not doing anything really out of the ordinary.
Now, did you hire a cleaning team to go in between the rentals?
No, our next door neighbor, he actually like that's his yard. He was always kind of he's always out in his yard, and then he would be like maybe, putting the fertilizer down or something. So he cuts the grass, and then he didn't mind, going over there. So he, washes the bedding after the guests leave. I asked them to put their dishes in the dishwasher, and so he turns on the dishwasher and then does the cleaning. He just does it all himself, and that's
so the key I'm getting from you is you're really good at finding good people. It's like you find these good people that you just want to keep and like nurture and like send cookie baskets to. Because
I mean, that's helped a lot. I have to say that has definitely helped. And that's one thing I would say, I guess, is if we do get another one, there's another gal I met through the real estate group, and she's interested in doing that sort of work. She's a realtor. So I said, whenever we get another one, because we asked him, it's like, would you be willing to do it if it's like, in a different city or something? He's like, he wasn't really interested. So I guess that would be the next thing is, if we get another one, how we're going to manage that. But I think, developing relationships with the neighbors, so they can, because I did talk to one of the gals who has rentals, and she lives out of the country even, but she has like two rentals here in the States, and she does it all remotely. But she does have local people that'll come in, and they will, change the bedding and clean up before the next guest. And she does have a ring light, and I got a ring light from Amazon. So you can, on the outside of the property, you can have a camera, so she can see that they actually did come in, do the work, and then when they left. So, and then the neighbors obviously can tell.
So you're saying a ring light? You mean like the security, the alarm?
It's a little camera. You can attach it as your doorbell, or it'll just be on the door. So then it's a camera, but it's like a ring, and it's a camera. So then you get, it gives you an overview of the door. So it'll tell you get an alarm on your phone if there's motion at the door. And then she can tell, like, the cleaning people did come in and they did what they were supposed to. And then, and when they left.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like that's been popular over the last couple of years. I've seen some people like look on the app to see if a package is delivered, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So you're using that, and then you're using a key, like a keypad. Do you change, like, is it a code that changes automatically? Like, how does that work safety-wise?
It's a smart lock. You're supposed to be able to do it remotely, but for some reason, I have to actually do it when I'm there. So I don't know why it's not working, but but you just basically code it, and then every time they leave, then you just change the code. And I have the same thing on my garage too. There's a keypad on the garage, so they can open and close it. So I'm not giving them any remotes, garage remotes. They're just gonna walk off. So
yeah. Now let me ask, do you provide like cable, Wi-Fi, internet?
And that's the other pain in the neck. That's really the only pain in the neck, really, because I don't know if it's because I got Dish. So Dish is our satellite. I wanted to try satellite. So that's for the cable. But then the internet, I went with our cable company. So periodically, I don't know if it's because of storms or they just automatically do it, the signals get crossed and then they don't talk to each other anymore. So I had some people that stayed for about 4 months almost. Their house had burned down, actually. And so the insurance company contacted me. And so it was actually kind of nice because to have somebody in there longer term, but they left the place spotless.
4 months insurance company referral and spotless. I think that's a win.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like night and day.
Right.
But so I would have to go, and I could have moved. So I have like the router down in the basement, and I could have relocated it upstairs. Cause basically what you do, you just gotta unplug it and then plug it back in again to reset it.
Right.
But I figure, well, that gives me an incentive to actually go to the property.
Go to this income producing property, right?
Yeah, and make sure that it's still there and nothing, But the neighbor, actually, the last time I asked him if he would just go down and do it, and he did. So I might have him do it from now on.
Yeah. Okay, so you're providing that, and then have you done any like experiences or anything? Is that an option when you're doing short-term rentals?
Yeah, they're asking me about that. I'm not really sure what that is. It's that like where you take them somewhere, or
I think
you?
so, or like I've looked up in other cies,
Okay.
like there's a restaurant or like you meet them somewhere for an activity. And,
Yeah, no.
yeah, okay.
I mean, I've heard of coaches that are doing like retreats. So I know another coach who's doing that. So I may touch base with her and kind of see how that's working out. I mean, her property is kind of like an oasis, but who knows? I mean, maybe if I have enough people that are interested, I could do something like that. But that's definitely down the road. So
it'll be like your upsell, or what do they say? You need to have a customer ascension plan. So it'll be another source of income from this one income stream. So.
Yeah, maybe you could charge more. So I really think it's just having access to the whole house, because I really don't do anything out of the ordinary. I mean, everybody's just like, the pictures I have in there are pretty much what they get. It's just simple white sheets. I don't provide toys for kids. I have plates, and they're pots, and I have, like eating utensils. I mean, I have the basics and a coffee pot. And I don't provide any food in the refrigerator, because you don't know what people, some people could have allergies or whatever. Because at first I thought, well, should I put something in there like cake or candy? But, now with people and allergies,
right.
I don't bother.
So let me ask you this. So you've had great success with this since October, right? Yeah. When are you doing your next one?
My next Airbnb?
Mm-hmm.
Well, right now the market is crazy, as I'm sure you know. So like we haven't really done anything actively looking. Like I would probably have to start marketing for another property, and we haven't done that yet. So
okay.
Yeah.
But this one's working, right?
Yeah, that's why we'd like to get another one, but it's just we don't want to pay these crazy prices right now. So we'll see. Yeah. But we have an airport here, and then we have the stadium. Because I know, like, whenever the Brewers and the Cubs play, we get people coming up from Illinois. And I didn't even realize they would come all the way out to Waukesha, but apparently they do. And then we have some of the golf courses around here. So we have, and then the DNC, I mean, it was canceled, but DNC was coming, and people were really going crazy with those Airbnb prices.
Right. I bet. Yeah. So I'm going to need to get a map after talking to you, because I'm up here in Virginia, and I haven't traveled ever, I think, to Wisconsin. But I think like one time my husband, I just remember it being cold. He sold a FedEx box truck we bought to someone, and he like flew out there and then drove it back home. I think I don't know if I was in med school at the time, but I just remember him going to WI and like, it's freezing.
Okay, yeah.
You could see his breath. That's all I remember him talking about. I didn't go with him. So, well, that's awesome. So I know you have that going on, and I've enjoyed the interview. Let's see if anyone's on. Does anybody have any questions? If so, if you're watching the replay, you can drop them live, and we can make sure she can come back and answer them. Okay. Let me see. Let me ask you one more question. So we talked a lot about kind of your pitfalls and horror stories. What do you enjoy the most about your real estate investing? So you've done different types. You're in short-term rental now. What is it that you enjoy the most? We'll wrap up with that.
Oh, well, I think, and also why I became a coach. I say I transitioned from death into life.
Yeah, tell me about your coaching. You haven't mentioned anything about your coaching business. So we talked about short-term rentals. What are you coaching, and what is the death into life? Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I do life and weight loss coaching. And basically, when I was working as a forensic pathologist, it was during the height of the opioid epidemic. I even wrote a book, Zombie Effects. I don't have my book here. But and so it was a lot of young people. And Waukesha was like the wealthiest county in Wisconsin. And so to see all these young people who basically had everything, just giving, offering themselves to this drug that was basically taking their life. And it still is, it's a shame. And so that made me start to think about, what kind of changes can I make? And also, like, I wanted to see how I could really make a difference and an impact. And obviously when they came to my autopsy table, it was too late.
Right.
So I found coaching. I went to the life coach school. So Brooke Castillo, she started off as a weight loss coach. So I lost weight just listening to her podcast.
Oh, wow. And what's her name?
Brooke Castillo. She started the life coach school, which is where I trained. Yeah. And but it's listening to her podcast too, it made me think, wow, I lost 30 pounds in 4 months. And so it's like, what else can I do? And so I really enjoyed the life coaching because of the sense of possibility and you can reach the results. We talk about the model, and the result is the result that you create in your life. And so I was working with people who the end result was they lived a shortened life. They didn't have a fulfilling life. They were unhappy, or for whatever reason that they got hooked on drugs. And for instance, obviously there was little suicides and homicides. But it's like, wow, how can your life can just be so unfulfilling, and so that made me start to think, well, how fulfilled am I in my life,
Right.
And so I think that also kind of pushed me to want to do something new, do something different. And so I went from death into life.
That's awesome. And, you take it to a different level, because I often joke with people. Someone said they were going to get me a shirt that said "not my specialty," because they come to me with other things. And I'm like, unless it's oncology, I'm not really going to help you with it. And, usually people get sad about oncology, but you took it to the next level. You're like forensic pathology. It is too late when you're seeing them, like literally. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So how long have you been coaching, and do you take that money for your real estate investment, or how would someone work with you? What type of, who do you help? Are you helping other professionals, or who are your clients?
Yeah, so it's busy professionals, and it's a lot of people like me. So I don't necessarily advertise for physicians or for Black women, but I've had physicians, and I actually had men. I've had some men that want to lose weight. So I mainly do weight loss. A lot of people come to me for weight loss, but I said weight loss is just the beginning. It's like that's just the beginning of your journey, because that's what happened for me. The weight loss was just like what does she call it, strategic byproduct. It was like I went to a whole nother level. But I'm learning so much about myself, and so it hasn't been as successful as the Airbnb. And I think some of that is my own. Obviously I create my results, so I'm doing something, or there's some resistance. So I'm learning. So when I talk about having a reserve and a super reserve, it's allowing yourself space to grow and to learn about yourself, because I didn't know. I think I always knew that I was shy, and not very aggressive, not jumping. I mean, I did jump in and do some things, but in other areas where it probably would be more crucial for me to be more aggressive, I tend to pull back, So with entrepreneurship, I think it's just calling forth for your all. You have to really give it your all. And so there's still parts of myself, I think, that I'm holding back or I hold on to. And so I'm just working on releasing that. And then I think once I release it, then financial abundance will come. Will flow into my life. So
but you make a very great point. I kind of just want to talk on it for a second, if I get a chance, because I was thinking about this other day. So I've talked, and I agree with you on the working capital and reserve, and you have to have that there. And I think you can make bolder decisions. You can, have greater impact. You can do more things entrepreneurial when you have that. And then I think it's a completely different type of push. Like when you talk about your coaching business, for me, I kind of went through that same thing. And, like you were like, my course wasn't out. I didn't always put out courses originally because it wasn't as clear cut for me, like you said, as when I could do some other streams. Like, for example, I had a 6-figure income with chart reviews that I actually just gave up. And I'm going to talk about that on a show. But that was a nice cushion. That was like a solid cushion. It was no risk. It was, it was calculated. It was there. So I could then take that into something else, to help with the 7-figure net worth. But I think when you don't have that, it's the pause. And I think as physicians, especially, I've seen what we've done is we don't always have that instant success in business. And I'll see people who have had half the training as us and they go out and they like do something online, they have a coaching business, and next thing you know, they have an 8-figure empire.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what's the difference? And I think that has a lot to do with it, if that makes sense. It's that you don't have that cushion, you don't have that reserve. It's a lot of unknown, that uncertainty that comes versus, okay, I've spent this much invested in my career and this is like a sure thing.
Yeah.
As opposed to if I go over here and, if I get one client, if I have 10 clients, what is it going to look like?
Yeah.
And I think that stops a lot of us.
It definitely does. The fear, and like you said, you have more to lose. I mean, I'm older, and so I have these habits and these patterns, and it's like entrepreneurship is calling me to do the opposite. And like you said, the uncertainty, with medicine, we like to be certain, we got to do it right, but with entrepreneurship, it's like, you think you're doing it right. And it's like, no.
No.
It's probably like raising kids. You're like, well, I raised them this way, but they're like, no, I got to go this way.
Right.
So it's unpredictable, but life is unpredictable. So, I mean, that's the part that I like about it. I like, because that's how you grow. That's how you learn.
Right.
And so I am exploring my own curiosity and allowing myself space. That's why I've really enjoyed this time that I've created for myself, and I've given myself, and hopefully I can, maybe I have to go back. We'll see.
No, it sounds like you're doing great. I mean, I love that exploration. You don't look older, so we won't ask your age. You don't look older, it doesn't crack. So, but I think it's fabulous. And sometimes I wonder, since we're kind of in that same, your background's pathology, I'm in oncology. I just wonder how much that like subconsciously affects our decisions.
Yeah.
How you kind of described that you just jumped in almost. That's how you described with getting the first property that was a fourplex. I think I take a lot more risk and really live life because I see what it's like not to be able to live life. And I look and people are like, well, you're really, you did that? Like, how can you just do that? I would never do that. And I'm just like, because I get one chance, I feel like I get one chance before either I end up on your table or, on my radiation table. And I think that kind of drive a lot of people don't have. And until something happens. And like last week, we were talking with Dr. Q about that breaking point. And for her, she shared that it was the loss of her parents at a very young age where she started to redefine, her life and the purpose and what she wanted to do. And I think for some people, that breaking point doesn't happen until you just feel like you don't have anything left to give to grow something new.
Right. And that's why I said, I'm glad that I did this now. I've still got my faculties, I can still walk and I'm still have energy. So I'm glad that I did it now instead of waiting. Maybe I could have waited another 10 years and who knows what that'll look like. So
Right. Yeah. Well, I am so happy for you. So I think we asked, but if you can put it in the chat, let's see if Jesse's on. So for everyone to reach you, if someone wants to work with you, if they're in the WI area, that's the right initials, right? Wisconsin.
Yeah,
they're in the Wisconsin area. Maybe they have a property that you may want to purchase for investment, or they know someone in short-term rentals. How can they reach you, and what are those best ways?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I don't know the exact links. I know there's like probably a way to write the link, and I didn't quite get that in there. But if you go on Facebook, you just probably put my search my name, Zelda Okia. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. So Zelda Okia. And then my website is www.zeldaokia.com.
Okay.
Just my name.
And they can book with you. Do you have like a consult? Is your book information on there? That's the best way to reach you.
Yeah. I've got a calendar link. Work with Zelda, and my book is there. It says I have one button for book, and that's my book, Zombie Effects. That's the book that I wrote for about my experiences with the opioid overdose deaths I was seeing, and then it says book with Zelda.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Well, it has been a pleasure to have you on the 1%
Well,
Code
thank
Live
you.
show. I've enjoyed our conversation. I love your nature. You're just like so calm, cool, and collective. You're like, yeah, I'm over here making $1 million on this short-term rental that we just decided we didn't need. And I wrote a book and I'm coaching and I'm a forensic pathologist. Like, I love it. I love your mix. I love your energy. And it's always good when I can find someone that has that nice calming energy, because here I am like, hey. So I love it. Like, so much wisdom you brought to the table. Are there any final words or advice that you want to give to those who are watching the show? Maybe they're at the point where they need life coaching. Maybe they thought it was short-term rentals. Maybe they want to do a short-term rental. They want to get started. Any final words of advice before we wrap tonight?
Yeah, I think for me, I always say, take your time and enjoy the ride. Like I said, I rushed in. I think I was like, I'm going to be a mogul, and maybe I rushed with leaving my job. I don't know. I guess the jury's still out. But you have time. And I remember even during medical school, I was looking out the window. I'm like, oh, my life is over. And then now I'm like, I was so young back then, So I think take your time. And like I said, start with one and just really get to know it. And then maybe add another one. And then give yourself some space in between. And I like the idea of the super reserve. So if you need 25,000 in reserves, why not 50, or go to 100,
Right. I like
so you have a nice cushion.
I like that. Well, that is absolutely awesome advice. So everyone, make sure you give us some hearts, drop your comments, any questions you have for Dr. Z, reach out to her. Her website, Jesse has dropped it below, her Facebook, LinkedIn. It sounds like she is available. She's not hiding. Check out her book, and we will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much, Dr. Z, for joining us. It's been a pleasure. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Hang tight.